What happens when a life dedicated to work turns into a heroic act, only to be rewarded with injustice? Emily, a young maid in a luxury hotel, finds herself facing a choice that will change her destiny forever. After the tragic death of her parents, Emily lives with her grandmother and younger brother, trying to keep the family united and healthy. Working as a maid in an exquisite hotel, she faces a hostile environment, where the manager, Brian, uses his power to harass her. Despite the daily difficulties and constant pressure, Emily stays focused on her work, nurturing the dream of advancing in her career and ensuring a better future for her loved ones. One day, while cleaning the pool area, she witnesses a distressing scene, a child drowning. Without thinking twice, Emily dives in to save the boy, putting her own life at risk. However, Emily's heroic act turns into a nightmare. Brian, who has a history of manipulation and inappropriate behavior, twists the facts, and the blame for the incident falls on her. He fires her, claiming that the pool was under her supervision. Disillusioned and unable to fight against the injustice, Emily leaves the hotel quietly, feeling that life has played a cruel trick on her. However, her courageous gesture does not go unnoticed. Edward, the owner of the hotel chain, discovers the truth about what happened and is impressed by Emily's integrity. Determined to right the wrong, he investigates the situation and uncovers Brian's mistakes. With an unexpected gesture, Edward visits Emily at her home to apologize and offer her the position of hotel manager. Now, Emily, promoted to manager, experiences a turnaround in her life. Brian, on the other hand, is demoted and must face the consequences of his actions. Over time, a special relationship develops between Emily and Edward, culminating in a true love that leads to marriage. In the conclusion of this story of overcoming, Emily, pregnant with her first child, decides to step away temporarily from hotel management but leaves a legacy of success and respect. Brian, for his part, finds a path to redemption by apologizing and showing remorse, marking a transformation in his character. Emily's story is a powerful testament to how courage and integrity can change lives, even in the face of adversity. Emily did not know that her day would start so well. The sun shone through the hotel windows, and she felt a small wave of hope as she looked toward the future. But soon, reality set in. Upon entering the staff room, she encountered Brian's disdainful gaze, the manager. He always watched her with a mix of contempt and interest. It was a power game, and Emily constantly felt at a disadvantage. The days dragged on, and the challenges seemed to multiply. The demands of the job never ceased, and the pressure to maintain the quality of the hotel's service was immense. Emily worked hard, doing her best, but every compliment she received was followed by Brian's disregard. It was as if he were always waiting for a mistake, for an opportunity to undermine her efforts. It was a constant struggle to maintain dignity in an environment that made her feel small. Additionally, there was the worry about her grandmother and brother. The responsibility to support the family weighed heavily on her shoulders. Her grandmother, a strong but already weary woman, did her best to help, but her health was deteriorating. Her brother, still so young, needed emotional and financial support, and Emily knew she could not fail him. Every penny she brought home was precious, and the thought of losing her job terrified her. One morning, while cleaning one of the hotel floors, Emily encountered a coworker, Clara. Clara was a free-spirited woman, always trying to see the positive side of things. She had a special way of befriending guests and, therefore, received more praise than reprimands. However, Clara also faced her own challenges. She was a single mother struggling to balance work and raising her young daughter. The two quickly became friends, sharing not only the challenges of work but also the dreams and frustrations of life. As they talked, Emily vented about the pressure she felt from Brian. Clara listened intently, and the concern in her eyes was evident. "Don't let him bring you down, Emily. You are stronger than you think," she said, trying to encourage her. Clara's words resonated with Emily, but doubt lingered. What if she couldn't withstand the pressure? What if Brian really could ruin her life? The day of the incident at the pool arrived, and when she saw it happen, her instinct to save the child was stronger than any fear she felt. The heroic act brought a glimmer of hope, but the reward was betrayal. When Brian fired her, Emily felt as if the ground had been pulled from beneath her feet. The manager's contempt and the injustice of the situation left her speechless. How could someone who risked their life be treated with such disdain? Anger and frustration swirled in her heart. After the firing, Emily returned home, disillusioned. Her grandmother welcomed her with concern, and her brother sensed the sadness in her eyes. Emily tried to put a smile on her face, but it was hard to hide the pain. She knew she would need to be strong so her family would not feel her despair. The nights grew long and lonely, and the pressure to find a new job was a constant shadow. Meanwhile, Edward, the owner of the hotel chain, began to investigate what had really happened. He was a fair man who valued courage and integrity. Upon discovering the truth, he was shocked by the way Brian treated Emily. He decided that he needed to find the young woman who had risked herself to save a child's life. The meeting between Edward and Emily was an unexpected twist. Even amid her pain, she couldn't help but notice the sincerity in his eyes. Edward offered Emily a second chance, and this ignited a small hope in her heart. But now, with a new challenge ahead, she questioned whether she would be able to rise again. The pursuit of success and the desire to care for her family became even more intense, and the emotional pressure began to affect her personal relationships, especially with Clara, who watched her with concern. Their friendship began to be tested. Clara, in her daily struggle, felt that Emily was distancing herself, absorbed by her new responsibilities and challenges. Emily, on the other hand, found herself caught between gratitude for the opportunity she received and the fear of not being able to meet expectations. It was a delicate balance, where the weight of overcoming and failing hung by a thin thread. In light of all this, Emily found herself at a crossroads. The life lessons she had always sought began to manifest in her mind. It was time to face not only the external obstacles but also the internal fears that were preventing her from moving forward. What did she really want? And what was she willing to do to achieve it? Each decision and each step would lead her to a new destination, and she knew that regardless of what happened, she needed to find the strength within herself to fight for her happiness and for her family. Emily was determined to make the new opportunity work, but the weeks that followed were a true emotional roller coaster. Edward had given her a chance, but the pressure to prove her worth was immense. The new position, although full of potential, also brought responsibilities that seemed too heavy for her shoulders. Every day, she arrived at work with her heart racing, fearing that a mistake could cost her the stability she so desperately desired. The first few days were chaotic. Emily tried to acclimate to the new tasks and the new pace, but the feeling of always being behind the curve consumed her. Her colleagues, though friendly, had their own routines and challenges, and she felt like an intruder trying to fit in. Additionally, there was the constant shadow of Brian looming over her. He still worked at the hotel, and his disdainful gaze was a constant reminder that she was under scrutiny. Every time they crossed paths, Emily felt her stomach churn. The bitterness of the past still haunted her, turning each interaction into a mental battle. Meanwhile, the situation at home was not improving. Emily's grandmother's health was rapidly deteriorating, and each visit to the doctor brought new concerns. Her brother, who had once been a source of joy, began to withdraw into a world of silence and childish worries. Emily felt powerless, struggling to be the anchor her family needed while facing her own storms. Sleepless nights became frequent, and fatigue wore her down both physically and emotionally. Clara, noticing the change in Emily's behavior, tried to help her. She often invited her out to distract her mind and offer her an escape. But Emily, consumed by her responsibilities, declined most offers, retreating into a bubble of stress and anxiety. Clara felt her friend's pain, but also her own struggle. Being a single mother demanded a lot from her, and sometimes the burden felt too heavy to bear. The two, who once shared laughter and dreams, now found themselves in an uncomfortable silence, each fighting their own battles. One day, after an exhausting shift, Emily received an email from Edward requesting a meeting. Her heart raced. What did he want? It surely couldn't be good news. Upon arriving at his office, she felt a knot in her stomach. Edward greeted her with a warm smile, but his eyes showed a concern that made her uneasy. He praised her work and dedication, but then brought up a problem she had feared. An important client had complained about a service error, and although Emily was not at fault, the pressure fell on her team. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. Emily knew that, regardless of who was to blame, the responsibility was hers. The weight of guilt suffocated her, causing the insecurities she thought she had overcome to resurface. What she had learned about overcoming challenges felt distant and irrelevant at that moment. Edward, noticing her struggle, made a point to emphasize that he believed in her potential, but that did not alleviate the pressure she felt. The next day, while cleaning the hotel floors, a new twist occurred. A guest complained about a problem with their room, and management decided that Emily should handle the situation. The fear of failing again paralyzed her. In a moment of desperation, something inside her broke. Instead of confronting the guest with confidence, she felt small and insecure. The complaint turned into an argument, and the scene attracted the attention of other guests and staff. The feeling of shame enveloped her, and when she finally managed to walk away from the situation, tears began to slip down her face. In that moment of fragility, Clara decided to intervene. She approached Emily, enveloping her in a comforting hug. "You are doing the best you can, and that is what matters," Clara said with an understanding look. The words touched Emily's heart, and she realized that she was distancing herself not only from Clara but from herself. The weight of failures and pressure had captivated her to such an extent that she had forgotten the importance of being kind to herself. After that conversation, a new understanding began to blossom within her. Emily realized that she could not control everything and that failures were part of the process. She decided that, even if she wasn't perfect, she needed to find a way to be herself, to learn and grow. From that point on, she began to apply the lessons she was learning. Instead of letting difficulties bring her down, Emily started to see each challenge as a learning opportunity. Her conversations with Clara became more frequent, and their friendship began to rebuild, strengthened by the shared struggles. There was still much to face, but now Emily felt more prepared for the battle. The road ahead would be difficult, but she was determined not to give up. Each day was a new chance to rise, to learn, and to fight for her happiness and her family. Emily's journey was far from easy, but with renewed strength and Clara's support, she began to see a light on the horizon, a promise that she could indeed overcome it all. Emily sat at her desk, her eyes fixed on the computer screen, but her mind was far away. The previous week had been exhausting, and the pressure seemed to increase every day. Although she had decided to give herself a new chance, reality presented her with a different challenge at every corner. The conversation with Clara had helped, but the feeling of being on the brink of collapse still lingered. Then, on an ordinary day, an unexpected email arrived. It was from Edward, asking her to meet with him. Emily's heart raced once again, anxiety consumed her. What could it be now? With a mix of fear and curiosity, she headed to his office, unaware that this moment would change her life forever. Upon entering, she found Edward with a serious expression. He greeted her and asked her to sit down. Emily felt a chill in her stomach as she waited. Edward began talking about the team's performance, mentioning the difficulties they had faced. He then, in a serious tone, revealed that the company was undergoing a restructuring. Some people would be laid off, and her position could be at risk. The word layoff echoed in Emily's mind, like a distant thunderstorm approaching rapidly. She listened as Edward explained that, although he was impressed with her work, the competition was fierce, and the decisions were not easy. A sense of despair took over her. The idea of losing again the stability she had fought so hard to achieve felt unbearable. Emily knew she wasn't the only one under pressure, but the possibility of failing once more made her feel like she was falling into an endless abyss. After the meeting, the weight of the news weighed her down even more. As she returned to her desk, tears began to slip down her face. Frustration and fear consumed her, and she realized that no matter how hard she tried to stay strong, there were limits to what she could endure. The past, with all its failures, haunted her. The feeling of helplessness was crushing, and she felt so small, so insignificant. It was at that moment that Clara appeared. She noticed something was wrong and approached. When Emily opened up about her concerns and fears, Clara listened attentively. Her friend's comforting words were like balm for her wounded soul. Clara encouraged her to see that moment as an opportunity for re-evaluation. Sometimes, the hardest falls make us rethink what we really want and who we are, Clara said with a determined look. Those words echoed in Emily's mind. She began to reflect on her life and her choices. What did success really mean to her? Was it recognition at work, or was it happiness and peace of mind? With each breath, Emily began to feel an internal shift. She realized that, even though she was facing a great storm, she still had the ability to choose how to react. An idea began to take shape in her mind. What if, instead of letting herself be brought down, she used this restructuring to her advantage? What would happen if she decided to explore new paths, new opportunities? The fear was still there, but determination began to override insecurity. What she didn't want was to be defined by her failures or external pressure. She wanted to be the architect of her own destiny. Determined to change her trajectory, Emily began preparing for the new phase. She enrolled in online courses to enhance her skills, seeking knowledge in areas that had always interested her but that she had never had the courage to explore. Sleepless nights were now filled with studying and planning, and the burden that once felt heavy began to transform into a source of motivation. Meanwhile, her friendship with Clara deepened. They started to meet more frequently, sharing not only their concerns but also their dreams and aspirations. Their mutual support became an anchor amidst the emotional storm they were both facing. Together, they discovered they could find strength in one another. The next day, during a team meeting, Emily decided to speak up. She shared her ideas and suggestions, challenging the team to think outside the box. To her surprise, The reactions were positive. Edward praised her for her courage and initiative, and in that moment, Emily realized she was rediscovering herself. The path was still uncertain, but she was determined to face it bravely. The transformation beginning within her was palpable. Each small step she took toward her goals seemed to make her stronger. Emily understood that life was not just about avoiding failures, but about learning to rise after each fall. And so, with renewed courage and a new vision of success, she embarked on her journey, ready to embrace all the challenges that lay ahead. The change that Emily had decided to make began to manifest quickly in her life. She woke up earlier, full of energy, and her daily routine transformed into a ritual of self-discovery. The online classes became a sacred space where she could immerse herself in new knowledge. Each completed course was a small victory, a reminder that she was capable of more than she had imagined. However, with this new enthusiasm, new obstacles also arose. Emily realized that even with determination by her side, the fear of being fired still haunted her. During team meetings, she struggled to express herself, but doubt often interrupted her. What did her colleagues think? Was she really capable of contributing meaningfully? Insecurity manifested in her body, leaving her nervous and sometimes making her voice tremble when she spoke. One morning, while having coffee with Clara, Emily opened up about her insecurities. She said, "I feel like I'm constantly being tested. What if, deep down, I'm not as good as I want to believe?" Clara listened attentively before responding firmly. "Emily, you've already taken the first, hardest step. Don't underestimate yourself. No one expects you to have all the answers. The important thing is to keep trying." Clara's words comforted her, but Emily's internal struggles still persisted. Determined not to let those feelings overwhelm her, she began practicing breathing exercises and meditation. A moment of tranquility became essential in her new routine. Sitting in silence allowed her to reflect on her emotions. During one of those sessions, while breathing deeply, Emily realized that fear was a natural part of growth. She began to understand that vulnerability did not make her weak, but rather human. At work, the changes began to become visible. Edward, noticing Emily's new posture, invited her to participate in a special project. It was an opportunity that could take her career to a new level. However, the pressure increased. The project involved a tight deadline and the responsibility of presenting results to a critical board. Emily felt the weight of the challenge, but she decided that fear would not paralyze her. Instead, she prepared meticulously, organizing meetings and seeking collaboration from colleagues. But, as life has its own plans, unforeseen events arose. A week before the presentation, a key team member fell ill, and Emily found herself in an even more delicate position. Stress mounted, and although she tried to stay calm, anxiety began to take over again. Sleepless nights became short and restless, and she found herself wondering if she could handle the task. It was on one of those nights, while revisiting her studies, that she came across an inspiring video about how to deal with pressure and uncertainty. The speaker's words resonated within her. True strength comes from knowing you can fail and still get back up. What matters is the effort, not perfection. This idea became a mantra that would accompany her in the days to come. Emily decided to talk to her teammates about the situation. By opening up and sharing her concerns, she realized she was not alone. Others were also dealing with stress and pressure. Together, they devised a plan to share responsibilities and support each other. The solidarity among them made the work atmosphere lighter and more collaborative. This experience reinforced the idea that it is possible to face challenges when there is support around you. The day of the presentation arrived, and the room was full of executives. Emily felt adrenaline coursing through her veins, but as she looked at her team beside her, a wave of confidence washed over her. She remembered the conversations with Clara and how much she had grown. When she began to present, her hands trembled slightly, but she took a deep breath and spoke clearly. The feedback was positive, and at the end, Edward praised her, highlighting her courage and the teamwork she had fostered. As she left the room, Emily felt a mix of relief and euphoria. Although she knew there was still much to be done, the experience left her stronger and determined to continue on this new journey. The lessons she had learned, both about herself and the power of collaboration, would accompany her every step of the way. She realized that the path would not be linear and that new obstacles would certainly arise, but now she was sure she could face them with courage and resilience. At that moment, more than ever, Emily felt she was in control of her destiny, ready to embrace the future that awaited her. Emily was in a moment of transformation in her life. She had decided to change, and this change began to manifest in unexpected ways. She woke up earlier, with renewed energy, and her routine had become a ritual of self-discovery. The online classes were a sacred space for her, where she immersed herself in new knowledge. Each course she completed represented a small victory, a reminder that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. However, as her confidence grew, new challenges emerged. The fear of being fired still haunted her. During team meetings, Emily struggled to express herself, often interrupted by self-doubt. What did her colleagues think of her? Would she really be able to contribute meaningfully? This insecurity manifested physically, causing her voice to tremble when she spoke, leaving her nervous. One morning, while having coffee with Clara, Emily decided to vent. "I feel like I'm being tested all the time. What if, deep down, I'm not as good as I want to believe?" Clara, listening attentively, replied firmly, "Emily, you've already taken the hardest first step. Don't underestimate yourself. No one expects you to have all the answers. What matters is to keep trying." Clara's words brought some comfort, but Emily's internal struggle continued. Determined not to let insecurity dominate her, Emily began practicing breathing exercises and meditation. These moments of tranquility became essential in her new routine. As she sat in silence, she reflected on her emotions, and in one of those sessions, she realized that fear was a natural part of growth. She learned that being vulnerable did not make her weak, but rather human. At the company, the changes began to be noticed. Edward, the boss, recognized Emily's new posture and invited her to participate in a special project, an opportunity that could boost her career. However, the pressure increased. The project had a tight deadline and required her to deliver results to a critical board. The challenge was great, but Emily decided that fear would not paralyze her. Instead, she meticulously prepared, organizing meetings and seeking the collaboration of her colleagues. But life had its own plans. A week before the presentation, a key team member fell ill, and Emily found herself in an even more delicate situation. Stress skyrocketed, and despite her efforts to stay calm, anxiety took hold once again. The nights became short and restless, and she found herself wondering if she could handle the task. On one of those sleepless nights, Emily revisited her studies and found an inspiring video about how to deal with pressure and uncertainty. The speaker's words echoed in her mind: "True strength comes from knowing that you can fail and still get back up. What matters is the effort, not perfection." This idea became a mantra that would accompany her in the days to come. Determined not to face the challenge alone, Emily spoke with her teammates about her concerns. By opening up, she realized she was not alone, others were also dealing with stress. Together, they devised a plan to share responsibilities and support one another. This solidarity transformed the work atmosphere, making it lighter and more collaborative. The experience reinforced the idea that facing challenges is possible when you have support around you. The day of the presentation arrived, and the room was full of executives. Emily felt the adrenaline rise, but as she looked at her team beside her, a wave of confidence washed over her. She recalled the conversations with Clara and how much she had evolved. When she began to present, her hands trembled slightly, but breathing deeply, she spoke clearly. The feedback was positive, and Edward praised her, highlighting her courage and the teamwork she had promoted. As she left the room, Emily felt a mix of relief and euphoria. She knew she still had much to learn, but the experience left her stronger and more determined. The lessons she had learned, both about herself and the power of collaboration, accompanied her every step. She realized that the path would be filled with challenges, but now she was certain she could face them with courage and resilience. More than ever, Emily felt she was in control of her destiny, ready to embrace the future that awaited her. The day of the presentation had finally arrived, and the tension hung in the air like a dense cloud. Emily arrived at the office early, her heart racing. Each step toward the meeting room felt heavier than the last. The speaker's words echoed in her mind, but anxiety also whispered doubts. What if I fail? What if all of this is in vain? She tried to push those thoughts away, reminding herself of the support from her colleagues and the transformation she had experienced over the past few weeks. As she entered the room, Emily's gaze met Edward's, who was seated at the table with the board. He gave her an encouraging nod, and that brought her a small sense of relief. Her team was by her side, each with their own dose of nervousness but also a sparkle of determination in their eyes. Together, they had worked hard, and that unity was a reflection of what they had built. The presentation began. Emily took the lead, starting to explain the project clearly. However, as she progressed, her voice began to tremble. Memories of insecurity and fear that had tormented her returned like shadows, trying to overshadow her. She hesitated for a moment, but then looked at her colleagues. The strength they conveyed made her remember the importance of her journey. Taking a deep breath, she decided to continue. She presented the data, the analyses, and the proposals. Each slide that passed was like a small step toward her greatest achievement. However, when she reached the crucial point of the presentation, one of the directors, known for his harshness, interrupted her abruptly. Why should we invest in this project? What makes it different from the others? The question caught her off guard, and insecurity threatened to take over her again. Emily felt her heart race, but before doubt could paralyze her, she remembered what she had learned. Strength lies in knowing that failing is part of the process. This project is not just a new idea, but a collaboration that involves the entire team. We worked together, faced challenges, and that has strengthened us. What I present today is the result of a collective effort, she replied, her voice more firmly. The room fell silent, and Emily realized she had touched a sensitive point. The eyes of the board were fixed on her, and she decided to seize the opportunity. I am not here just to sell a project, but to show that when we work together, we can overcome obstacles and create something valuable. Each of us has a role in this success, and it is this unity that makes the difference. The tension began to dissipate, and Emily felt a new surge of energy. She continued, now with more confidence, sharing not just the numbers, but the vision she had for the future. The passion that drove her was palpable, and as she spoke, she saw some directors nodding, showing that they were connecting with her message. When it was over, the room was enveloped in a reflective silence. Edward was the first to break it. "Emily, you managed to capture the essence of what we are looking for. Collaboration is indeed the future." The other directors began to speak up, praising the presentation and acknowledging the importance of teamwork. A wave of relief washed over Emily, and an emotion surged within her. In that moment, all her fears and insecurities seemed small in the face of the accomplishment she was experiencing. The support of her colleagues, the strength she had found within herself, and the lessons she had learned throughout her journey came together in one feeling: victory. She had overcome her greatest challenge, not just by presenting a project, but also by allowing herself to be vulnerable and authentic. As she left the room, her teammates surrounded her, congratulating her. Clara, with a proud smile, pulled her into a tight hug. "You were amazing. I knew you could do it." Her friend's words echoed in her heart, and Emily felt that, more than ever, she had built bonds that would transcend the work environment. That day represented not just a successful presentation, but also a celebration of Emily's transformation. She had faced her insecurities, learned to lean on her friends, and discovered that true strength lies in working together. With a smile on her face, Emily felt that she was finally in control of her life, ready to embrace the future with courage and determination. Each challenge shaped her, and, more importantly, each victory connected her with those who shared her journey. After the presentation, the atmosphere in the office was one of celebration. Emily and her team gathered around the coffee table, smiles lighting up their faces. The positive feedback from the board had been a balm for their tired souls, and the tension that had previously hung in the air had now transformed into a wave of euphoria. Edward, always the group cheerleader, lifted a cup of coffee and proposed a toast. To courage, to collaboration, and most importantly, to you, Emily. You were incredible. His words were met with applause and laughter. Emily felt a warmth in her chest. It was as if suddenly all her insecurities had been swept away. She was no longer alone, but part of something bigger. As her colleagues commented on the presentation, Emily became pensive. Those weeks of preparation had taught her more than just how to present a project. She had discovered the strength of the team and the importance of allowing oneself to fail. Hearing the excited voices around her, she felt a deep gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you all," she said, looking into the eyes of each team member. "It was a collective journey." Clara, always the most optimistic, replied, "That's what makes the difference, Emily. Together, we are stronger. And you, with your passion, inspired us all." Those words echoed in Emily's mind. She realized that the true victory was not just about the project, but about the connection she had created with her colleagues. This experience had not only shaped her character but also solidified a bond that she knew would last. In the days that followed, the impact of the presentation began to spread throughout the office. The board not only praised the project but decided to invest in it. The positive energy was contagious, and Emily's team gained new momentum. They began working on new challenges, always remembering what they had achieved together. Collaboration became a mantra, and every meeting was marked by a spirit of unity. Ideas flowed, and innovations emerged naturally. Emily, now more confident, began to lead meetings with enthusiasm. She realized that her voice carried weight and that her ideas were valued. This encouraged her to share not only thoughts but also her concerns and aspirations. The team became a safe space where everyone could express their ideas without fear of judgment. The work environment was lighter, filled with laughter and mutual support. However, even with all this progress, Emily knew that the journey was just beginning. Sometimes, at night, she still found herself thinking about the insecurities that haunted her. But now, instead of letting those thoughts dominate her, she recognized them as part of the process. Each day, she reminded herself of her transformation and the power vulnerability had in connecting people. On one of those nights, she decided to write in her journal. The words flowed freely, and, upon rereading, she realized that the story she was telling was not just about a presentation but about growth and resilience. She wrote about the importance of allowing oneself to feel fear, but also about the strength that comes from facing those fears. It was a lesson she wanted to share with others, especially those still struggling with their insecurities. The next day, she decided to approach her colleagues about the idea of a personal development workshop. "I want all of us to share our stories and learn from each other," she suggested. The enthusiasm was immediate. Each of them had valuable experiences to share, and the idea of a space where they could support and grow together was met with excitement. The team began to meet weekly, and what started as a simple workshop evolved into a true movement of transformation. The stories of overcoming and the lessons learned created an even stronger bond among them. Emily realized that by helping others to open up, she also felt stronger. She was not only shaping her own future but also positively impacting the lives of her colleagues. Over time, the insecurities that had once dominated her nights began to dissipate, and a new sense of confidence took their place. Emily was changing, and, more importantly, she was empowering others to do the same. Every challenge she faced was now an opportunity for growth, and every victory was a collective celebration. In her heart, she knew she had found not only her purpose but also her true strength in unity. As time passed, Emily became a true pillar of strength and empathy within the office. Her weekly meetings, which began as a simple workshop, evolved into a vibrant space for exchange, learning, and mutual support. Each story shared by her colleagues was like a piece of a puzzle, revealing not only each person's struggles but also the victories that emerged from overcoming them. The team grew not only in skills but also in unity. She reflected on how that path, which initially seemed filled with insecurities and doubts, led her to a journey of self-discovery. The nights of worry were replaced by moments of reflection where she acknowledged her growth. Looking back, she saw that every challenge faced, every mistake made, was an opportunity to learn. Emily realized that true success was not just about being recognized by the board or winning a project, it was about creating a community that supports and elevates each other. The connections she formed with her colleagues helped shape her worldview. Friendship, which once seemed like a simple word, was now a powerful force that drove her to be better. Emily learned that vulnerability is a form of strength and that everyone has their own story to tell. This understanding transformed her into a more compassionate and approachable leader. The impact of her journey was not limited to the workplace. Emily began to apply the lessons learned in her personal life. The confidence she developed encouraged her to get involved in new activities outside the office and explore her interests. She enrolled in an art class she had always wanted to take, and this new passion brought a sparkle to her eyes. Thus, the transformation was complete. Emily not only became a stronger professional but also a more fulfilled and happy person. In one of the team meetings, she decided to share her thoughts on the impact of friendship and connection. What we experience here is not just about work. It's about how we become better together. Each of us has a story that can inspire the other, she said, her eyes shining with emotion. That room full of colleagues was filled with a special warmth, and everyone felt part of something greater. At the end of her journey, Emily not only saw her insecurities overcome but also helped others do the same. The team, now stronger and united, was ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. The feeling of accomplishment that enveloped her was palpable, and she knew that the seeds they planted together would bear fruit for a long time. Emily bid farewell to that chapter with a light heart and full of gratitude. She understood that every step taken on the journey was a lesson, and that growth, friendship, and unity were the true treasures of life. As she left the office that day, she felt a wave of happiness. The transformation she experienced was not just hers but of everyone around her. And so, Emily's story becomes an invitation for all of us. As we look around, we can see that each of us has the ability to impact one another's lives. By sharing our stories and supporting each other, we create a better and more welcoming world. Think about your own journey. What lessons have you learned? How about sharing your experiences in the comments and connecting with those who also seek to grow and support one another? Together, we can build an even more inspiring space. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Let's embark on this journey of transformation together.